I realised pretty early on, I wasn't going to make it as a football player. I had a real sense of adventure when it came to travelling. I always wanted to live in America, so I got an opportunity to go live and work there when I was 22, for a football-based company there, where I spent 18 months just learning how to coach football, really. I was pretty raw, I was pretty young, had an amazing time before then heading back to England and starting to get on my coaching licence. Was something I really wanted to achieve. Being part of the Phoenix for their first years in the A-League was something I wanted to achieve. Back in Canada, I wanted to be part of the under-15s. So I haven't set like goals that are really unachievable, but I've just set them so I'm constantly challenging myself and not completely in my comfort zone, which again I think is a strength. And sports psychologists, and like at the Olympics, one of them was like, you have a good base of resilience to work from. So now I work with a sports psychologist here in the UK who's incredible, who is helping me continue to build that resilience, not only for myself but for my players and for the staff, and look at my leadership style and how I'm still like young as a leader of people. I've been a leader of players for a while, but a leader of staff, I'm still learning and still young. So, even with that, she's helping, frame what that looks like for me, so that I can still authentically be myself and allow people to be themselves also.
I've got the most amazing and fun interview today. This is Graziella on Fun Fridays, and we're going to talk a little bit about the mental muscle with a woman that has really led the way around both equity and the principle of being both a brilliant coach, a fantastic ambassador, and her experience in football across New Zealand, the UK, and where she's going to next, whoever knows. But she's doing some fantastic work at Lewes Football Club. She also was an assistant coach for the under-20s in 2019 to 2022, and she was part of the technical staff for the 2023 World Cup for New Zealand. I've got in the room with me Natalie Lawrence. And Natalie is hailing from both New Zealand and now in the UK. We've been moaning about our internet connections as we've jumped onto this call together. So we just know that there's so much more in common to talk about. But given my penchant for women who ambassador change, I am so privileged to have you in the room today, and I cannot wait to delve deeper into these questions so that the whole world can learn a little bit more about how amazing you are. So Natalie, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and working with me through my
You know
internet
what? We might
problems.
live in the 21st century, but we might be still trying to dial up our internet in the next century when we start to go and look at space habitats, which I know the UK government's looking at the moment. Natalie, I think you've been delightful to talk to and just to get into the room.
Yeah.
And failing anything, around the internet, I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic conversation. And what I want to do is really bring the best of you into the room. I know that you've got a pretty pressed schedule, so thank you so much for giving us time today. And I wanted to start today by letting the audience that listen to this really hear some more about how amazing you are. I always feel so privileged to have, real ambassadors of the game in the room. It's such a beautiful game, and it wasn't always easy for us to access, to have competition. Can you share a bit about your journey and your current role in the field, where it started, and some pivotal moments or challenges you think kind of helped you to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, my journey's been one that's included a lot of countries, included a lot of travel. Um, it's taken like a steady trajectory forward, but one that hasn't been rushed. but has also, I've been very fortunate to be given a lot of opportunities. So, yeah, I think back to, growing up in the UK, football mad. One of my first memories is, and I'll show my age here a little bit, is Paul Gascoigne scoring a goal against Scotland at Euro 96, and, going into the backyard and just practicing that goal for hours and hours and hours, and, just playing football and loving like the purity of football, and eventually going to watch Aston Villa play, and they would always lose. For the first 4 or 5 games I watched them play, they lost 2-0. It was like I was the curse or something. So even like going through that journey of watching, Villa play, get relegated, get promoted, get into Champions League, even that kind of the highs and lows of football just as a supporter are so different yet so similar to the highs and lows in development or as a coach. But I think, yeah, I realised pretty early on, I wasn't going to make it as a football player. Um, I enjoyed playing it. I enjoyed what I did, but I moved into coaching pretty early. I always had a real sense of adventure when it came to traveling. Um, I always wanted to live in America, so I got an opportunity to go live and work there when I was 22, um, for a football-based company there, where I spent 18 months just learning how to coach football. Really, I was pretty raw. I was pretty young. Had an amazing time before then heading back to England and starting to get on my coaching licenses, starting to go through that pathway. Um, got a job in a centre of excellence, as it was back then, with Kidderminster Harriers. And then me and my friends decided that we wanted to go travelling. So we actually did this whole world travel, which took us from England to Australia without flying. We did trains, we did
Oh,
buses, we did a cargo freighter ship, and then ended in Australia. Uh, Eventually got to New Zealand, where things just really kicked off for me. There was something about landing in New Zealand that it like felt really homely to me. And yeah, pretty early on, like football is such a connector of people. So the first thing I did was join a football team. From joining that football team, um, I then met some amazing women, who were like, "Come and join us." They were like, "Come join us. We give you free tracksuits." And I was like, "A free tracksuit? Oh my god, yeah! Like, let me have this." And it
was
was
it
the
pink?
worst tracksuit I've ever had to
Was it
wear in my whole
pink?
entire life. Like, I was definitely catfished. No, no, it was like this.
Oh my God.
Oh, it was like a shell
Okay.
suit, like those old Scouser shell suits. It was like a royal blue. It was literally, I was so catfished, but it's such a funny story I have with my friends about how we were like, I was offered this tracksuit and that's all I needed, and I just never wore it. I just didn't wear it. I couldn't bring myself to wear it. Um, but yeah, I think from that moment, like my career kind of accelerated a little bit into, working in clubs, meeting people. That's where I met kind of Emma Humphreys, who, I ended up joining in Canada in 2015, and working there after spending 5 years in New Zealand, and again doing my licenses through New Zealand, so my B license and my A license, and again you just
Tho-
meet so many
Those are the days
incredible
too where
people
we
and
didn't have
incredible
a lot of female
educators.
coaches. I mean, it really has only recently become a real push. And so you've really pioneered that area. I look at your history and I have a real penchant for, women that will break some glass ceilings. I mean, it just something for me. I started in forensics in New Zealand and I was one of the youngest ones in a maximum security jail. And I used to use sport working with the guys at Paremeremu. And
Wow.
it's always, and I loved what you said, sport builds community and it is a beautiful game. I know shifting countries, if you go and you join a team, that's how you meet people. I've been lucky because, I've got kids that play football and no matter where they went, at that national status, at a local status, whatever it was, we were able to meet people and community comes up. You've done remarkable things. What challenges have you faced? Like, have there been things that you stopped and thought, I don't know if I can do this? I don't know if I can keep doing this? Or has it always been, all right, I'm just going to, is there that valve inside of you? Because I mean, I know in the number of women I've interviewed and men as well, that there are points where we get to in our careers and we just think, are you kidding me? Really? But in you, when I look at you and I see your history, you just look like you've just gone and gone and gone. And it's like this railway track.
Yeah, I think yeah, like my career has taken me to some weird and wonderful places, and at times maybe I've had opportunities that, like the classic female um, perspective, isn't it, that you don't feel quite ready for. So moving into the Phoenix head coach role, was I 100% ready for that? Would I do things differently, knowing what I know now? Probably, but at the time, did I feel that it was it was the right thing for me to do, and to try it, like 100%? And when I think when you move from that kind of development into performance, that's when, like for me, that's when you really, the parts of self-doubt really do creep in. And if you get a bad result, and like I'm quite good at not really looking at social media. One of my friends said to me once, like probably 10 years ago, something was on social media, and it was like, it wasn't even a big thing, and she just said, like, don't listen to the streets. And that's kind of a little mantra that I've always kept with me, like, don't listen to the streets, don't go searching, don't like go looking for things on social media. But when you're working in performance, and the highs and lows of winning can be so far apart and so dramatic, that there's times like that where you're like, I just can't do this anymore. But I always come back. I definitely am that person that has like white line syndrome. So as soon as, no matter what is going on, as soon as I step over that white line and coach my players, like everything goes away. All my worries, all my concerns, any self doubt, everything goes away. And I just coach players, enjoy the session, enjoy football, enjoy being in the moment. And then, yeah, kind of what will be, will be. And I think in my career, I've had things I've wanted to achieve, and I've had like mini goals I've wanted to achieve. So being part of the staff for 2023 was something I really wanted to achieve. Being part of the Phoenix for their first years in the A League was something I wanted to achieve. Back in Canada, I wanted to be part of the under 15s. So I haven't set like goals that are really unachievable, but I've just set them so I'm constantly challenging myself and not
That's an
completely in my
interesting
comfort
style.
zone, um,
It's a
which
huge
again I
strength, and
think
I
is a
listen to the
strength. And
style and the way that you do things. And I think one of the things that's standing out to me is that, there are projects, there are initiatives, there's things that we do, that white line sort of syndrome. I really love the way that you've coined that, because it's like anything in life, isn't it? You get to a point where you just have to step over the line and everything else has to fall away and you've got to perform. And if you lock into what you're passionate about, everything else can drop away. If you look at your leadership
Mhm.
style and the way that it really has, taken on that, that point of focus, that enablement, you can feel it from your personality. It's evolved over time. And how would you say, you coined it beautifully, sort of looking at how you did things. You said you might do things a bit differently now. And really, experience is a great teacher. So we can't ever regret what we don't know, because you know what you know, right? So if you look at
Mhm.
resilience and you look at, say athletes today, you look at yourself as a coach, a couple of really interesting comments there around, you said early on, I don't think I'm going to go very far, but I'm a brilliant coach. I know how to teach this game. So if you look at your personal philosophy and how you've cultivated that strength and that resilience, what do you think has contributed to the resilience that you have to keep going forward and to keep going, all right, I'm stepping over the line today?
I think that's a really good question. I think it's something I've had to um, unconsciously work at and now consciously work at. So I think, probably when I hit my 30s, that was when I was like really became quite self aware of me and my values and like what authenticity meant to me and what I felt, how I felt I could be authentically myself in sometimes in an industry that I'm quite I can generally be fairly calm. I'm not that like big type A personality, which doesn't often fit into the mold of what like a performance coach might be, or a manager or head coach. So I think I kind of took myself on a bit of a journey with that. But I think the biggest things I've had is support. So I was really fortunate to be on a program with High Performance Sport New Zealand called Te Hapaitanga, which was an incredible program with incredible women working in New Zealand um, at the top of their game, ran by. I had two amazing mentors that taught me different things at different moments of my life and my journey. And then even now, I have like a good like self awareness, but I also with that I know that I need continuous not continuous support, but I need to be aware enough of when I know I need support to help with that resilience. So I was I work I've worked with some two specifically amazing sports psychologists, um, and like at the Olympics, one of them was like, you have a good base of resilience to work from. So now I work with a sports psychologist here in the UK who's incredible, who is helping me continue to build that resilience, not only for myself, but for my players and for the staff, and, you know, look at my leadership style and how I'm still like young as a leader of people of I've been a leader of players for a while, but a leader of staff, I'm still learning and still young. So, even with that, she's helping, frame what that looks like for me, but so that I can still authentically be myself and allow people to be themselves also. Um, yeah, so I think like a foundation of self awareness, then I've built upon that with support and help from people that I've been lucky
I
enough
just
to
loved what
cross
you said
paths with
there,
in
and
my
it's so very
career.
important. I mean, you're really singing to the song sheet that is so very close to my heart. I mean, it's so important to grab the tools, not just for yourself, but through you, they then extend to everyone else because you're transmuting the knowledge. It's coming on, and the science of the mind is incredible, like psychology, psychoneuroimmunology, the way that our nervous system works, and how we respond in sport is so very much about how present we can be because we know there's a correlation between our anxiousness and even injury. So it's so important to be able to switch that on and to do it easily. And you've said it several times, the foundation is self-awareness. I mean, we talk about that a lot, that self-awareness takes you to resilience, but you have to know where you've come from first. And so that pattern, of that emerging leader
Mhm.
that you are, that person who's leading people. I love the way you distinguish between I've been a leader of teams, but not a leader of people and organizations. And perhaps sometimes that's a bit of a different kettle of fish. But if you look at emerging trends for you in sport, what are you seeing around you that excites you more about perhaps taking on that leadership? And how do you specifically start to see yourself, evolving that in the next few years as you really, help to grow this industry of women's sport?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think, being in the UK now, um, being at a pretty special club like Lewes, again, like the support I have here is is incredible. Like we aren't massively resourced. We don't have all the shiny bells and whistles, but what we do have is really good people. So, I feel like what I'm being taught right now is how to evolve like my own like coaching philosophy of how I want the game to be played, how I see the game, and everyone sees the game differently, how to simplify and teach that given the resources that we've got, but also how to be um, a developer and leader of people. So when players come to us, they get something a bit different. We our values as a club are huge. Our equality for equal FA Cup pay, and I think that one of the things I love about Lewis and the people I'm working with here is football is paramount. Football is the number one, but it's also more than us. That we have a bigger purpose than the 90 minutes on the field at the weekend, but that's the platform that we get to really deliver our purpose. So if we can be successful on the football field, then that's going to give us a bigger and better voice for some of the inequalities that we see in the game. And I think it's really important that we keep using that voice and keep and bring more people on that journey with us, because the game is evolving. The game is evolving massively all around the world, especially in the UK. But what we can't lose sight of is there's still inequalities in the game, and there's still a lot of work to be done, whether you play for Arsenal or whether you play for Lewes or whether you play for Worcester City. Like we still have a purpose in the game to ensure that things are better now than they were 10 years ago. It's to ensure that we continue fighting for that, fighting for better, and fighting for better not just at the top, but fighting for better all the way down to grassroots, fighting for better as a coach, fighting for better as support staff. Um, yeah, like we just can't. The game has grown to a crazy, crazy, crazy level, but we can't. We still. I don't think we can be happy with
I
where
love
it's
that.
at. We've
I
got to
love
keep
that
going.
energy. I love your energy. I love that push, that boom. I get it. I feel very much the same as you. Like we can't give up. We've just got to keep going. And there's so much more, you can taste it, feel it, see it, but you can't. Like it's there and you know what it could be like. And there are days when you do get those small wins and they do keep you going. But what motivates you most to keep pushing forward? Because you have an exceptional energy and you can see it, when we listen to you and your approach. It's all about, I mean, the game talks about diversity, it talks about inclusion. You alluded to the fact that the game at the moment is not really, there are still holes in it, there are still patches that still need to be sewn together so they're seamless. So we really are having an equity experience. And what keeps you motivated, and what do you think those patches are, and how
Mm.
long is it going to take us to get there, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the motivation for me is like I get to do what I love every day, and if I can, like it, if I can go through my career and a, a good group of players who I've worked with have got positive things to say about me, have had a good experience of me as a person, think that I show empathy and kindness and am fair, then no matter what I've achieved in my career, no matter what I do next or whatever, then like I've done really well. I've achieved what I think my purpose is. And then I think comes with that is like a deep understanding of, as a female in the game, things aren't just handed to you. That you've yeah, like even being on licenses, right? Being the only female on my A license, for example, um, there's a you put a certain pressure on yourself that because you're the female, and this isn't a pressure that anyone else has put on you. It's one that I put on myself that you've then got to prove yourself because you're a female. When I've been a coach educator in a in the class full of males, I feel like as a coach educator, I have to prove myself because I'm a female. So I think it's really understanding like through the little pinnacle parts of your career,
Mm.
whether you like it or not, you're showing other women that they can do that too. And I think with that comes a responsibility to keep wanting more and keep wanting more for the game and more for equality and more for resource and but also again showing that I can do it authentically as myself. And I will make mistakes and I have made many mistakes, but I'll learn from them. I'll ask for support so I don't do them again. And then I'll try and help someone else not make that same mistake. Um, yeah, and I think like that's more than
I just
enough
feel really
motivation.
inspired by you, and I really have to say, I sort of feel the same way that you, that motivation is from every generation that comes after. Everybody that the road paved so differently for. And, you
Mm.
know, you are very authentic and very genuine and so easy to talk to that I think that most people around you would be very fortunate to experience, you know, that nature that you have there, and your passion, your drive is incredible. If we look at the game itself and we look at what you've done, we look at where you are, and you really are just starting on that road. Because I mean, it just, I look at it from my lofty 54, and I'm looking at what you're doing. Think, oh, you've got so many exciting things still to do, and there's just so much. I think when you start out, you start with that fresh look. What advice would you give to someone starting out in their field, in this beautiful game or in and around it? Because there are so many different roles around sport, but you've shown so much guts and so much determination, but you've now got that experience under your belt. If you look at either your younger self or you look around you at the sort of the diverse groups of young women just aspiring, wanting to tread a pathway in sport, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I think the biggest things that helped me was the people around me. So I feel incredibly fortunate to have met the amazing people that I've met in sport. And that's people that are at the top of their game and people who um, run a over 35s community football club or football team. Like I think if I was to give anyone advice, it's like find those people, find your network, find your support. Um, I think it can be quite it can be quite easy to try and do to try and go like forward at this crazy, crazy, crazy rate, but also like one of the best pieces of advice I have been given is like be where your feet are. So I think we're always, especially like this generation, we're always looking at what's next, what's next, what's next. And I think that's okay. Like always have that ambition, but also be present in what you're doing and really, really ensure what you're doing, you're leaving in a better place than when you arrived. And I think, yeah, like that's kind of what I look at now is look ahead, look at what I want to do in my career, but be really in the moment now and be where my feet are now. Do everything I can to whenever it is that I move on to my next step because everybody leaves, everybody moves on, that I leave things better and I also leave a better
Yeah,
person because of
I
it too.
I really love that. I mean, it's sort of, I think it's an ilk from New Zealand too. When you look at the I've worked a bit with the junior Māori All Blacks, and you listen to them, leave the jersey better than where you found it, and it's the most lovely saying. You know, leave the room better than when you walked in. Never leave it worse. But leave the jersey worse, because you're writing something on someone
Yeah.
else's history, and so you really are, you're leaving something behind, that you're remembering, you know, you're remembered by, but you're remembering that that was your footprint. um, I love everything you're saying. I could probably talk to you for hours, but my final question then is, um, if you look at a message for your younger self and you kind of think about the amazing things that you could do. I mean, there's a bit of fun we could have too by looking at that message for your younger self, and maybe if you were to pick, you know, your top 5 coaches that you think your younger self should have gone and looked at to role model, who would they have been? And what would that message be?
So who would I have picked as my role models?
Yeah. Who would have been those 5 coaches? I mean, I think one of the, I don't know, around
Yeah.
the FIFA Women's World Cup, and then I think
Oh
FIFA
wow.
had a really nice kind of re-look around the World Cup. There were some really great things they were talking about. I remember Arsene Wenger said something about, you know, when you're feeling the stress, you can't show it to anyone. As a coach, you've just got to keep smiling and not let anybody see it, because you learn that, you know. And I thought some of
Mhm.
the things he said, I just really listened, really took it in, and thought, yeah, you wouldn't see it on the surface. There's just so much that goes, there's all that peddling, all that work that's going on that nobody sees. But who would be your top 5 that you would say to your younger self, look at them? They're going to teach you something that's going to help you get past some stuff that's going to be tough.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. Like, if I was to be younger right now, I
Mm.
would look at someone like an Emma Hayes. I think what she has achieved in the game is massive, but she's also done it herself. Like, she's just herself. Even talking about how, she felt quite ill at Chelsea towards the end, and having that kind of bravery to leave. I mean, the US national team is an incredible team to go to, but kind of, and knowing that you can't be at that level right now, to then, because it's like affecting your well-being and probably affecting your whole home life and whatever, to then have that bravery to move into something different. um, I think she has huge high standards, but also has a really good relationship with her players. So I think her balance of that is really, really interesting to kind of understand. Um, yeah, I think, um, like I grew up like loving. Obviously, I watched Villa, so um, I really liked watching Villa play when we had Martin O'Neill. He was the first one that I remember watching, and us really, really performing. Um, and now, like under Emery, um, I think of his work ethic. Completely, completely different. Doesn't necessarily have that kind of player relationship, but a huge, huge work ethic. So would be quite different to me, but how he sees the game is massive. Um, I think Tom Samani, I was really lucky to experience when he was in New Zealand, and I think when when you look at somebody being authentically themselves, and having a crazy career on top of that, and he's hilarious. We still talk now. Um, he's
I'm a super
yeah,
fan of Tom.
he's
I
like
think I shared that with you. He's one of my
an
favorite
incredible.
people. He rocked up to me last week when I wasn't
Yes,
expecting to see him. I was walking out of the gym and they were playing down here, and he was like, "Grazie." I went, "Oh my lord, who's that?" And there he was, and he just is like, for such a great human being, for what he's done. he just really is himself, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. And anyone you meet
Oh, yeah.
just says, "Oh,
We
I
start a
love
fan club
Tommy,
in here. We have
love
to play this
Tommy."
back to him.
No. But yeah, he's
Yeah.
just like he's achieved amazing things in his career. But you can sit down and have a cup
Yeah.
of tea with him and talk about the chase. You know, so like I kind of love that. I love that like work ethic
Yeah.
whilst still having fun. And I think like when you work so hard in the game and you make choices, it's not sacrifices, but you make choices that impact maybe your personal life or your well-being or finances to be in specific areas, and those are choices that you've made. It's
Mm.
really important that you're enjoying what you're doing, even if you're doing it in a performance environment. Like you've got to, yeah, I think we work too hard and too many hours to not enjoy what we're
That's a
doing and
great
the people
statement.
we do
I
it
think we
with.
need to have that as a banner. You know, you've got to love and enjoy what you do. If anything, I think it can't be a throwaway statement. It's got to be let's live it. You know, it's and that's one of the things I think that we've got to see more and more in the game. I love your message around authenticity, and I feel like that's the entire message of this podcast. Authenticity. You are so real. The people you've pointed out are authentic and real. And if anything, I think what's going to help us survive and actually thrive through all the changes that are going to keep happening in this game, it's being authentic. We can't just write down this is what we value. We've got to show it. Like, you know, when we talk about well-being, if we can't feel it and we don't see it, then it's not
Hmm.
happening. And we talk about, you know, diversity and inclusion. If you can't see it, you can't feel it, it's not happening. So the challenge is authentic means real, authentic means see it in front of
Hmm.
you. And I definitely can see you in front of me and say, wow, you know, you are so real and so easy to talk to. And I can only imagine you must be so much fun to work with because, you know, that sort of pinchment means that what you get is what you see and it makes life
Right.
fun.
Yeah, I definitely try not to take myself too seriously. I have to remind myself that sometimes. Not like some days are, you know, you have those days in football, don't you, where nothing seems to want to go right for you. And that's when you're like, oh, can I do this anymore? Should I be like the amount of times I've phoned my mate and just been like, ah, get me to the Maldives. This is too much. I need to be on a beach. She's probably sick of it, but that like I said, then you have a good conversation with a player, you see the progressions that they have in their life and on the field, and yeah, you do. Like I love individual sessions with players, like making the time for that. I think I was really lucky to um, when I was at the Phoenix, Ian Foster, who was the then All Blacks coach, he was visiting. He was at the Hurricanes. He was visiting ahead of the World Cup, and I was really lucky that he gave me an hour of his time just to chat to him. And one of the things he said to me was like, like a head coach or a manager, you can be taken in a million different um, things to do in the day, like media, player chats, whatever it is. Like there's a whole raft of things that can like cause your mind chaos. And he's like, but you're a coach for a reason. He's like, so no matter what's going on, he will always ensure that when it gets to a training session, he's delivering a part that he wants to deliver, and that brings him joy. I think he said he was an attacking coach, so he would always do something with attacking, and that kind of always sat with me. Like the everything else that's going on around managing people or game plans or watching games or media or whatever, it's you're a coach because you love coaching the players. So make time for that. Like Phil, one of my mentors from my
Mm.
Tahapai Tonga program would always be like, "What fills your bucket? Do something that fills your bucket." Um, So yeah, I always just make sure I do something from, even though it's still for the players, it's for myself. They probably don't
It's
realize how
really
much it's for
super
me as
interesting,
well.
and I just love that, that you are. You, I think that simplicity is there. You do what you do. You have all these great titles. There's all this weight on your shoulders, but the simplicity of it is you love coaching. You're an attacking coach. You're a defensive coach. Whatever it is that you love to do in the game, you just go back to that. Um, and there's some great pieces to grab out of this, and
Hmm.
I'll finish up with. I could again talk to you forever, but there is something here I just want to finish up with. There's a really great little piece, if I can digress. I mean, I've really enjoyed my time with you today, Natalie. I think giving us the time you have, the the great experience you've had, the way you've led the game, what you're doing with Lewes Football Club, what you've done, your top five coaches, the fact that it's not just code driven, it is about what coaches can offer each other, because coaches are our forgotten athletes, and they so much are the foundation of the game. That fun can only make it fun for everyone around you. And I can only imagine that everyone is learning from you, because, that's going to infuse your athletes with a sense of, yes, there's that discipline, dedication, devotion, but you've got to also be yourself in this, and you've got to give it everything. And I can imagine that there'd be a lot of loyalty for someone like you as a coach. So I look forward to seeing more. I'm going to finish on one thing though. We know that Christmas is a really super interesting time. It can be brilliant on one side. And as we spoke about, there are some days that you want to go to the Maldives. You can join me in the Bahamas, where I'm going to sell ice cream on those days, because I've decided that everybody loves ice cream. So if I go sell ice cream, there'll be no problems. And the Bahamas is fantastic. It's simple life enough. I'll go there. So you're welcome to come and sell ice cream with me anytime you want to. But Christmas is that time where I'm really, honestly, I sort of, I'm very driven by not just athlete mental health, but by mental health globally, and from the area of social impact, from any professional, any environment. We're all human beings. It can be a time where we can be incredibly lonely, incredibly pressured. We're not all starting from the same place, and as much as we want equity, it isn't there. We've got such different experiences. So, could I just ask you, as part of my 12 days of Christmas, if you'd mind just giving a few tips to people who might find it tough this time of year? And I'm wanting to inspire people to make Christmas count together. A bit like the old days, when Band Aid getting together and saying, we've got to know that it's Christmas. And Christmas sometimes is just an act of giving nothing material, but something more of ourselves and the fact that we care. What would you want to say to people who may be finding it tough at Christmas? Ways to combat the pressure, or maybe the tougher times? What are some messages you might like to give?
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's a really great question. And I think the first thing comes to mind is to not put that pressure on. Like, it is a time of year where you kind of expected to be at this party or bring this gift or be at this event or work this day, work that day. Like, I think the beauty of Christmas is the ability to connect with people, and that your loved ones, your family, your friends, um, whatever it may be, and yeah, take pressure off yourself to perform, because we have to perform every day in our lives, and just be with people, be in the moment. Like I said, it's no different to coaching. Be where your feet are. Be be fully present in what you're doing, and your presence is the
I love
present that
that.
people
I'm going to
need.
leave it right there, because you have been magic. Thank you. And I'm glad the internet helped for us. We did it. We did a
Thank
fantastic
you.
job together of making it last.
We've made
And I hope I get to see you again, and I hope I get to see you in person on one of my
it.
visits to the UK. Thank you so much for your time today. You're always welcome.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Thank you. Have a great Christmas.